Hi, welcome to the first edition of the Roundtable of the 2016-2017 year. We are your hosts. My name is Jiho Lee.
I'm Cam Fuller.
And I'm Faraz Khan.
And we're just going to talk to you guys about some of the sports that have been going on this past couple of weeks. So obviously we had the professional sports, NHL, NBA, the Major League Baseball playoffs are starting up, and so we'll be talking about that. And of course, we had the local sports, the Rockbridge Athletics Department, as well as Mizzou Football. And so kind of getting started, we'll talk about the Major League Baseball playoffs. It's kind of a down year, I feel like, in Columbia because, Royals are out, Cardinals are out. At the same time, there's so many good teams, and it's going to be such an exciting playoff run. Obviously, the Cubs, going by the record, are the best team. But just last night with the American League wildcard game, just that the energy and the atmosphere, of course the easily criticized decision of leaving Zach Britton in the bullpen by Buck Showalter, it's so exciting. It's such a good reminder of how exciting the playoffs are, especially in baseball. And so, what do you guys think about the playoffs, and which team do you think has the best chance to win it all?
Well, personally, I think it's definitely going to be one of the most exciting playoffs in recent memory, especially because it seems like, a lot of the kind of mainstays of the league for at least, our lifetime, or like the Cardinals, are just out of it. They didn't have a great season, and so I think it's really going to be interesting to see who comes out. Mainly, of course, the obvious team to pick if you're a betting man would be the Cubs. But I still think that a lot of teams can come from behind. But personally, I think the Cubs are still the one to beat.
I think I agree because obviously the Cubs are a very dominant team. And I do agree with you, Cam, that any team could have a chance of winning it all. But obviously the Cubs are the favorites in winning the title.
Yep.
I think I'm going to go with the Indians on this one. Kind of a bold choice. It might just be because I am a Cubs fan. I don't want to pick my own team. But especially after getting Andrew Miller. And Terry Francona is just a genius, putting Carlos Santana in that one spot. But with Tyler Naquin just going off as he has lately, Jason Kipnis, defensively the Indians are so solid. Their bullpen's locked up. Pitching, probably the best, in my opinion, the best rotation in the league right now. With Strasburg out for the Nats and with DeGrom and Matz out for the Mets. And so the Indians are just a dangerous team, especially at home, especially for a city that's been dying to see a good baseball team for such a long time. And so we'll see what happens for that. Moving on to the next professional sport, we've got the NBA. So far, what do we think for this year?
Well, obviously, last season was obviously one of the best seasons, I think, in my opinion, that we've had in a long time. Not only in just the regular season, the All-Star weekend, especially the NBA Finals. We had probably one of the most exciting NBA Finals performances we've ever seen by LeBron James and Kyrie Irving, coming back from a 3-1 deficit. Mm-hmm. And in the offseason, we had a lot of, a lot of projections and a lot of trades. And the free agency period, most notably Kevin Durant went to the Warriors to join a super team, and they are now the favorites to win the NBA championship in 2017. But I think that since there's a lot of competition, more competition than previously in the NBA than previous years, because Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, the big four for the Warriors. For the Cavs, it's the returning players: LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, and company, J.R. Smith, etc., etc. Also, Russell Westbrook is now the only star player on the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the Spurs, although they did lose Tim Duncan, they are still a very dominant team, and I just think it's going to be a really exciting season with all of the competition that we now have in different teams and in different areas around the country. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think the NBA is slowly developing into a league that has a definite hierarchy, and so we obviously have the top tier with the Warriors and the Cavs, but especially with this offseason, like Faraz said, there were so many transactions. If you look at the Knicks, getting Joakim Noah and Derrick Rose, obviously two injury-prone guys, but these teams that are either the top, the middle, or the bottom, and the bottom is becoming horrendous. I mean, it is becoming embarrassing basketball. And so I've said this for a while. I'm not sure if it's going to happen, but I feel like the NBA would be benefited by extraordinary amounts if they just shut down some of these small market teams that cannot perform well. Obviously, an unpopular decision, but to cut down the league in terms of size and get 20, 22 very competitive teams, I think that could help the NBA out a lot. At the same time, it is those small market teams that can come out with those wins late in the season, and those wins can be the difference between a 2 seed and a 3 seed, which can obviously make a big difference in home court advantage. And so, ups and downs of having these super teams, but in general, kind of going back to what Farr said, what do you guys think about Kevin Durant deciding to go to Golden State and going to the West Coast as opposed to staying in OKC?
Yeah, probably one of the biggest trades in recent sports memory. I think honestly, my personal opinion, I think that that was probably the biggest trade, but I think the smartest trade was what the Knicks did. Just getting guys that teams can kind of be hesitant about because, like you said, they're injury prone players. But Noah is just insanely good around the rim, and I think that they're going to be probably personally my favorite to come out of the East. But at the same time, I think that you'd be a fool to not pick the West champion to be Golden State. But at the same time, I think they're going to collapse just like they did last year under pressure. I think that just having very similar to what the Heat had with the Big Three, that first time that they make it to a championship, they're just the chemistry's not there yet. And I think over time it's going to build up, and they're going to be possibly one of the greatest NBA teams of all time. But as of right now, it's definitely one of those things where I think, egos and, just overall, seeing who can gel with, having so much star power out on the court. I think it's going to be incredibly interesting, but I just don't think that those those huge egos can necessarily gel well enough to get them a championship.
I also think that because Kevin Durant, who is probably the second best player in the league, with him going to the Warriors sacrificed a lot of rim protection, like Andrew Bogut and a lot of other centers who really performed well in the NBA Finals and actually helped contribute to the Warriors' 3 wins. So I think that too many guards in a single team, I don't think that's going to work out especially well in the beginning because, small ball can only work so long, and we saw it in the NBA Finals. You always need defense, and the Warriors basically sacrificed the major portion of their defense, aside from Draymond Green, to get Kevin Durant, and I don't think that it was a very smart trade, to be honest.
Yeah, time will tell, of course, but it'll definitely be interesting to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
And moving on to the NFL, we'll hit this just really quick, just tap it with the hammer. The Chiefs are horrendous on offense. Jamal Charles don't know where he's going. Spencer Ware had a decent first game of the season. Besides that, awful. Chandler West, who knows what he's doing. And then it's, I guess, good for the Rams that they're doing well. Bad that they do well the year after they leave. Yeah. Besides that, I don't think there's really a lot of surprises. Vikings surprising 4-0 without Bridgewater or Peterson.
Had a great season so far.
Yeah, I think Broncos and Patriots are returning some heads without their returning quarterbacks. But that Patriots defense got so good this offseason, knowing that they didn't have Tom Brady. And now with Tom Brady, I think the Patriots are going to be lethal moving forward. But we'll see. And now moving from the field to the ice, we have the NHL. Of course, the Blackhawks and the Blues are the perennial contenders and the hated rivals. This year is honestly just a toss-up for me. I feel like every single year, every player gets older, and that shows on the ice. And neither the Blues nor the Blackhawks have a lot of young talent. And so I think it's going to be one of those smaller teams, maybe Carolina, maybe Detroit, not really a small team, but one of those non-Midwest teams that's going to find some youth and kind of make some waves in the NHL this year.
Yeah. Moving forward, we're gonna go to some golf out on the links. Pretty incredible news for the country as the U.S. Golf team gets a huge win in the Ryder Cup against Team Europe. Only their second win in 8 years of this competition, which is biannual, so in 8 competitions. But it seems like they started off incredibly strong, going up 4-0, and then Team Europe came back. Then when it came to singles play, it was just Team USA just absolutely showed why the United States has some of the best golfers in the world, and it was incredible to see. I think really something to be proud of. As a United States citizen, even if you aren't into golf, it was really actually a pretty special show. And so I definitely say if you haven't seen any of the highlights from that, go back and watch them. But now moving into some more local news,
Well, real quick, I just feel like if you're going to talk about sports right now, you've got to kind of mention the more somber aspects of the sport.
Yes.
Of course, Arnold Palmer passing away, devastating. But for me, being a baseball fan, when I heard the news that Jose Fernandez died, I did not know what to think. I mean, he is must-watch television, or he was must-watch television. The energy and the excitement that he brought to the game, the talent that he had, it's one of those things where it's not like Arnold Palmer passing away because, he was an icon, but he was pretty old. And so it was inevitable. As unfortunate as it is, it was inevitable.
Very true.
To have a guy that was going to win a couple Cy Youngs, who was probably going to win a couple MVPs, who was arguably the most talented player in the league and the centerpiece of that community and of that team in Miami, man, it's just devastating. Honestly, I'm still not over it. I don't know how you can be over it. But it's a sad period of time for the sport. So many players like Diaz for the Cardinals are very, very close to Fernandez just because he has that character that makes you fall in love with him as a fan, as another athlete, as a coach. And so, man, this is just devastating. Just another star player gone too soon.
Yeah, very true. And I think it's important to know that, kind of like what Gio was saying, he was, in my personal opinion, the template for what baseball, needs to, have, that kind of energy, that kind of charisma to continue to grow the sport and to continue that kind of excitement around it. And so I think it was really incredible that, even though his time was short with us, that he gave so much and that he, was overall just, really an incredible person. You can look all around the league and no one has really anything bad to say about him because the guy was just really a good person, great with fans and really did everything that would be expected out of a star player. So it was very, very sad to see him go.
And now moving on, we'll talk briefly about Mizzou football before we get into Rockbridge sports. Disappointing is the only word that I can use.
Yeah.
Georgia choked.
Sad.
I think a lot of fans in Columbia thought that Mizzou had a chance against LSU with Les Miles gone, with Leonard Fournette, especially after what Mizzou did to Nick Chubb. The prospect of facing a running back like Leonard Fournette was going to be an exciting challenge, but LSU tore up Mizzou's defense.
Ran all over them, literally.
And Mizzou's offense was just awful. I think Mizzou fans got a taste of what Mizzou's defense could be against Georgia and a taste of what Mizzou's offense could be against Delaware State. Obviously, it's Delaware State, but still disappointing against LSU. Hopefully, we'll get better. But man, it's just been a disappointing season so far for the Tigers.
Yeah, I think everyone can agree that Georgia game was, one that should be in our win column. But sadly, that is not the case. I think a lot of that has to do somewhat with some poor decisions late, both from the referees and also from Mizzou coaches not doing their best job of conserving clock time and giving Georgia that opportunity to get a touchdown on fourth down. But nonetheless, Georgia came away with it. And, of course, they got a taste of their own medicine when they played Tennessee and lost on that crazy Hail Mary. So, I think it's something to keep in mind with SEC football is that really, at this point, besides, of course, your big your big boys like Alabama, there's still a lot of competition between the other teams, and I think it's interesting to see that. But nonetheless, we'll be now moving on to some local sports. Rockbridge football came away with a very impressive 46-33 win over Helias. A team that maybe not the best in the state, nothing too crazy incredible about them, but nonetheless an upset for a team that has definitely struggled this year against teams that are bigger than them, and also against teams that just have more confidence than them and or have more of the I'd say varsity experience. Seeing as Rockbridge is so young, but nonetheless they came away with a big win, and something that's really important as we get ready to go against SLU, which is one of those better teams in the state, and also as we get ready to go into the playoffs, and hopefully we can make a change from last year's first round loss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be exciting for sure. Now moving on to other Rockbridge sports, soccer has just won 5 games in a row. Yesterday, an incredible win against St. Louis University High School, SLU. SLU actually tied the best team in the nation a couple of days before the game. And so to come away with a win right there, and in a 3-game stretch to beat SLU, Chaminade, and Santa Cruz, man, Rockbridge soccer is just clicking right now, it feels like. Another huge district game, senior night, tomorrow night, against Smith Cotton. That's kind of one of the last tune-up games before the district tournament, but it will be exciting. I think there's a lot of anticipation for the Bruins soccer team going into the postseason this year.
For sure.
Swimming and diving does what Rockbridge does best, which is just win a lot. Volleyball, another kind of a down year. Better than expected with a win early in the season against Jefferson City.
Sure.
But moving later on into the year, some games against Helias and Hannibal and Higbee. It's teams that really, obviously Helias is good, but other teams that talent-wise, Rockbridge I think should match step for step with. Rockbridge just didn't show out, and so it's been a little disappointing. But kind of like the football team, young,
Very
new
young.
coach, and I think the future is nothing but positive. And now going into softball, district tournament starts tonight against Smith Cotton, a team that Rockbridge beat, I think by 14 or 16. But Rockbridge, despite also being a young team, has been successful on the softball field this year, and so that'll be exciting. Under Coach Loeb, the girls tennis team looks to have another impressive run at the state tournament this year. I think the team sent 6 or 7 individual members to the state tournament, and so that'll be exciting to watch. Also, girls golf enters the state tournament next week. Senior Julia Bauer, won the district tournament and the sectional individual tournament with scores of 75 in both. And so the Mizzou commit obviously doing big things on the course. We'll see what happens there. And that's really all that we have. Thanks for spending some time with us. We'll keep you updated on all the things that happen around the country and in the school. But for now, I'm Jiho Lee.
I'm Cam Fuller.
And I'm Forrest Cohen.
And we'll see you next week.
Be sure to check out our video on our YouTube page, and we'll be sure to update you whenever our next podcast comes out. Thank you, guys. See you later.